Hello everyone and welcome to another News Coolum video and another plug side chat. Someone had mentioned in the comments below from one of my previous videos about why Electrify America was offering 150 kilowatt charging and 350 kilowatt charging when there weren't actually any vehicles in the VW's lineup that could charge at 350 kilowatts. I wanted to talk about this subject a little bit more just to clarify some things, but then also to give my impression of what I think VW is up to and maybe what some of the other automakers are up to regarding the charging speeds and the difference that you see. As of this video, Electrify America still hasn't rolled out their new pricing structure, but it does look like they're applying something similar to what I've recommended in a previous video about basing charging rates on essentially demand fees. The charger will essentially read the charge rate of your vehicle and then base the fees on that. So it does appear that Electrify America is aware that different charging speeds with different vehicles will result in different fee rates and fee structures on their chargers, so they're adjusting accordingly. But it still seems sort of odd that they have 150 kilowatt chargers and 350 kilowatt chargers, because they are in very close discussions, I'm sure, with VW Group and the different automakers that are producing electric vehicles for VW. And VW Group does, in fact, have vehicles that will be charging over 300 kilowatts. They're all in the works right now, but the first is the Porsche Taycan, which should charge at about 310 kilowatts, along with the Audi e-tron GT. And if 310 kilowatts seems fairly precise, essentially it's because I'm doubling the charging rate of the Audi e-tron, which is 155 kilowatts, because I believe what Porsche and Audi are doing is essentially just doubling the voltage. So what we see for the Audi e-tron's 155 kilowatt charging rate up to a little over 80% battery, I expect to see that for Porsche in their Taycan, and I expect to see that for the Audi e-tron GT essentially just doubled. So 310 kilowatts up to a little over 80% battery. So those 350 kilowatt chargers you see Electrify America installing, they do have a purpose. So it's not like they just needed to install the 150 kilowatt chargers. If you look back at Electrify America's original filing documents and their original proposal, they listed it as 320 kilowatt chargers. Again, just enough basically headroom to cover that 310 kilowatt charging rate for the Taycan and the e-tron GT. It looks like the 350 kilowatt chargers were all that was really available, driven by ABB, BTC Power, Signet, and the other providers. So they are planning ahead for those future vehicles. Right now, the only vehicle that can really take advantage of that 150 kilowatt charging rate, though, is the Audi e-tron. But I would expect many more to be coming in the future. And the reason, though, I see this sort of differentiation is I think VW, and though I haven't heard anything official about this, I believe GM will probably get in on this as well. I think what we're going to see is that for the mass market EVs, 150 kilowatt charging will become the standard, sort of the baseline charging rate. And you're going to see that with most of Audi's vehicles, with most of VW's vehicles, like their ID Cross, ID Buzz, all of these ID series that VW is proposing. And I think you're going to see that moving forward with all of GM's vehicles too, that are based on their BEV2 platform. So I would expect somewhere between 140 and 150 kilowatt charging for pretty much most of the vehicles produced by VW Group, GM, and a few others moving forward. But again, that 350 kilowatt charging, I think that GM is probably going to reserve that for their BEV3 platform. And GM had recently announced that their Cadillac lineup is going to be sort of leading their electric vehicle brand. And I think that's what we're going to see. So Cadillac, Porsche, some of the Audis, so these high-end luxury versions of the vehicles, I think we're going to see all of these prestige brands pushing EVs with 300 to 350 kilowatt charging moving forward. However, for the average consumer, I think we're going to see 150 kilowatt charging. Now, I recently did a trip in the Bolt EV where I limited myself to only charging for 15 minutes per session for my 500-mile trip. And based on that experience, I think that 150 kilowatt charging is going to be perfectly acceptable for the average person for basic traveling needs with fairly efficient light duty passenger vehicles. So really, I do think that the only reason for faster than 150 kilowatt charging is to compensate for inefficient vehicles. So you see larger vehicles, sport utility vehicles, things like that, they're really going to need access to faster than 150 kilowatt charging. But if you're driving a fairly efficient compact crossover, sedan, something of that nature, 150 kilowatt charging up to 80% battery is going to be perfectly fine. The moment you start putting on roof racks, start towing trailers, things of that nature, then maybe 150 kilowatt charging isn't going to be sufficient anymore. But in that case, you're going to end up probably having to pay for 350 kilowatt charging, right? You're going to have to pay to access that level. And I mean, it sort of makes sense if you feel that your time is worth it to where you need to be able to charge up 300 miles of range in under 15 minutes. Well, then you're going to have to pay for that sort of access. So that's kind of where I see things going with this difference between the 150 kilowatt and 350 kilowatt charging. I think that's what we should actually expect as consumers moving forward. I think any vehicle, even average price that's released at this point, if it can't charge at an average rate of 150 kilowatts up to 80% battery, I don't know why we would even be considering it. That's where the technology needs to be moving forward. That should be our expectation as consumers. And if you pay a little bit more, the expectation really should be, yeah, we need to start having access to 350 kilowatt charging all the way up to 80% battery. So I'd love to hear what you think. Do you think that 150 kilowatt charging would be adequate for your personal needs, for your travel needs, or do you really think that you need a 350 kilowatt charging rate so that you can charge up 80% of a 300-mile EV's battery in under 15 minutes? If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and thank you for watching.